He's like, Dad, want to play video games? And he's way better than I was at his age, and it bothers me, really.
Well, how old are you?
40.
40. Yeah, I was going to say, you look so young. God.
Yeah, I'm going to age real quick.
Yeah, no, it takes years off your life. 40 and so anyway, this is the Unionist podcast. Justin Litvack from Boxer+Gerson. Thank you for sitting down. And, basically your firm is a workman's comp firm, right?
We are. The vast majority of our practice are representing injured workers. We're a union shop. Our staff are Teamsters 856.
Oh, God.
So we make it a practice to try to represent union members.
Right. And going back for years, just in my experience, we've always referred people there. And I don't know that you're union exclusive, but you definitely,
we're not.
What's unique about your firm is you always kind of understood that the union has a role in what it does in addition to what you guys do. Yeah.
And that is so important that we see a lot of different attorneys in our industry.
Right. Because as a union official, I can tell you, sometimes people have their own attorneys and we end up stepping all over each other or worse. And it gets in the way of a person maybe getting what they need, Yeah.
Oftentimes what separates union workers from not every injured worker we represent, but a lot, is they get paid well.
Right.
Great benefits. They want to go back to work. They don't like the fact that they got injured, even if they're off work for 6 months. The goal is to get back to work.
Oh, I never even thought of that.
Whereas a lot of our clients sometimes, they like the job, but they don't care. The job is not as much a priority.
So the relationship's not a priority either.
It's not
for those people. Yeah.
But for a union employee, their goal is to get back to work. So oftentimes the goal is not the value of the case. The goal, and that's what makes what we do, frankly, more.
That's a huge difference.
It's exciting to me. Like, we have a personal injury department. The goal of the personal injury department is obviously to serve your client, but it's always money.
Right.
At the end of the day, it's a lawsuit and it's money. In workers' comp, and this is what makes this so exciting for me, the goal can be any number of things. It's often medical treatment. Sometimes it's getting back to work. Sometimes it's money. Who knows what it is?
Right.
So, but for the most part, with union members, sometimes we will gladly take a discount on the case, or maybe your preference isn't to push what we call the value of the permanent disability. The goal is simply to get them back to work.
Right, because permanent disability, if it's not handled correctly, could basically, they could lose they could injure themselves or permanently disable themselves right out of a job.
And I'll never forget a phone call I received from a business agent who said to me, "Hey, I need your help on this case. It's another attorney. I don't know this attorney. What's happening?" So he sent me the information, and he said that the member's calling me freaking out that the employer is telling him they literally walked him off the job. And he said, "Why?" And I said, "Oh, well, there's a work restriction." "Well, what's that?" And I said, "Well, the doctor is concluding that your member can't do his job." And warehouse job, driver job.
Permanent work restriction,
right.
Or
And I said that's a permanent work restriction.
Adios pension or anything else they're accruing, yeah.
And the attorney, and it actually got a little ugly because he said to me, "Hey, can you talk to his attorney?" I said, "Well, that's kind of weird."
Yeah, that's super weird.
You want me to call another attorney and say you're not doing a good job, like talk to your client?
Right.
But, I did. Why not? So I stopped him in the hallway of court and I said, "Hey, you don't know me. You have this case. The union's calling me just as a colleague." And he got upset with me. He said, "Don't tell me how to do my job." And I said, "Oh, okay, fine.
Yeah.
You have every right to say that." But the reality was that attorney did not understand how to represent a union member. And that union member had questions for the business agent, and that business agent didn't have answers because they had no relationship with the attorney.
Right.
So we play a really important role in that process in our understanding of how these issues interrelate.
Well, yeah. And the difference for me, because I've butted heads with attorneys in that situation because they're trying to wholly kind of sequester their client so they're not getting any other information from
Well,
but from them.
they're just
know?
like, I got to get my client the most money. Because what's weird, what's totally, I don't know if I can swear, but what's totally
we swear all the time.
What's totally ass backwards about workers' comp, and
is that swearing? Ass backwards?
I think it's sort of swearing. So what's totally ass backwards about workers' comp, and I tell every one of my clients this. I don't even hide it. I make more money the more injured you are. How weird is that?
Yeah, that is weird.
Like, I don't want to root against my clients, but the reality is that the state set up a system where we're paid a contingency fee based on the value of the case. More disability equals more money. So the more injured my client, the more money I make. How dumb is that?
Yeah,
I could do a ton of work getting my client all the right medical care, getting them back to work, and I am hurting myself. What I tell my clients is, that's how you know that I'm a fiduciary to you, because it's not about me. It's not about my money. It's about you.
That's always been my experience with the firm, because I've been recommending people there for 20 years. And that is that, John used to tell me that we're big enough. We're not going to, one case isn't going to change the fortunes of the firm, so.
Yeah. In fact, when I was a defense attorney.
I mean, how big are you, Boxer+Gerson?
15 attorneys.
15 attorneys. I mean, relative to like
50 employees.
State.
We're the largest. There are 3 or 4 workers' comp firms in the state that compare to us size-wise.
Gotcha.
In the state. So I generally tell people we're the largest applicant law firm in the state. And here's where that plays a role. I was on the other side. I was a partner at a defense firm, meaning I tried to screw over injured workers. That was my goal. That's why I don't do it anymore.
How dare you?
Yeah, because it's an awful way to live. Like, you ever want to feel awful about yourself, go to like a cocktail party and you're thinking every one of you assholes is lying to me? Because you're just trained to just assume people are lying. And
right.
That's just an awful way to live.
Yeah,
So there was an attorney at Boxer+Gerson who was notorious for just pushing cases until the very end. And what we always said on the defense side was, only at Boxer+Gerson can they do that, because they don't feel the need to turn cases and make money.
Right.
They're fine with letting a case play out, pursuing every last angle. And you can't have that mindset when you're trying as a defense lawyer to settle a case with Boxer+Gerson, because they just don't, that's not how we operate. We have enough volume and enough clients, enough attorneys where enough's going to roll over every year. We're going to do okay. We never push anything.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And it's done really well for, like I was talking to a client on the way here. Her case is 10 years old, and she's like, well, what's next? And I said, well, there's this, there's this, there's this. And she's like, can we be done? I said, yeah, we can be done. Here's the value if you want to be done.
Right.
Here's where I'm headed. And she's like, well, I like that better. I said, yeah, so let's go for a ride.
So if it's you and a buddy, I mean, you can't live like that, right? I mean, so in other words, a small firm's gotta.
Well, they gotta pay people, right?
Yeah, they gotta move cases.
And it's a really weird ethical dilemma, right? Because as an applicant lawyer, again, as a lawyer, you're fiduciary to your client. You can't be interested in your own finances. That's not your job.
Well,
but you better believe it happens.
Right? Yeah, I mean that's the real world, though, right?
You better believe that you have attorneys out there who are thinking, they're offering me, $500,000. The case is worth $1 million.
Right.
That's a nice fee on the 500. I can talk my client into it. That's an awful way to practice law. But unless you're at a firm that can handle that, there's. I'm not saying everyone is inherently doing that,
of course,
but
the pressure is going to be there.
Greater when you're your own person. So yeah, 1 and 2 man shops. I'm always impressed by them. We do personal injury in addition to workers' comp, because sometimes the workers' comp claim includes a personal injury case. Classic example, just to give you an easy example, like you're a UPS driver, you're Teamster, you're a UPS driver, and you get hit by a FedEx truck. Right.
Yeah.
Well, you've got a workers' comp claim with UPS, but you better believe you're going to sue FedEx. Right. You're going to take them for all they're worth.
Because UPS isn't.
Well, UPS can't. Right. So
Oh, okay.
You have the right to bring a workers' comp claim.
So explain that. So I'm a UPS driver.
Yep.
I get hit by a FedEx truck. UPS can't try to recover the cost of.
So UPS has to pay you benefits.
Right.
Right. Because what makes
Whatever
workers'
contractual obligations on top of everything else.
What makes workers' comp unique is you don't have to prove fault. So UPS didn't do anything wrong. You were just driving your route.
Right.
FedEx guy fell asleep and hit you.
Yeah.
So UPS says, okay, our insurance company will take care of you. You're off work. They give you medical treatment. They give you
Right.
wages. You call a workers' comp lawyer like me. We help guide you to the right doctors, make sure you get the right benefits. And then you have the right to sue FedEx separately because they caused the injury. Now you have to pay back UPS. So UPS has ironically, in what we call that third party case,
Right.
you and UPS are on the same team.
Right.
And now you're going after FedEx to get them to pay. And the money in a personal injury case is greater because you have to prove fault.
Oh, okay.
So in a
Workman's comp, there's no fault.
Like
Right.
I always tell this example. If my assistant heard it, she'd probably yell at me. Like if my assistant, who is just super klutzy and trips and falls walking out of my office and hits her head, I'm responsible. Even though I didn't do anything wrong.
Is she klutzy?
She's the klutz. She's not a klutz, but like she'd laugh if she heard this.
Right.
So I'm responsible, even though I didn't do anything wrong. She just tripped over her own feet.
Right.
But she's at work.
And she's on the clock.
She's on the clock, right? It's like the Aflac duck. You're
Right.
hurt at work. But yet she can't sue me, right? She can't.
Oh, so that's the trade-off.
That's the trade-off. She can't sue me even when I am at fault, unless it's an extreme.
You're like
level of fault.
grossly negligent.
Right. Then
Right.
she can come after me, right, in certain circumstances. So when there's a third party case, you can sue for fault. So you can have your cake and eat it too.
Gotcha.
Right? You get your benefits, you get your treatment, and then you can get greedy by going after the third party defendant.
Well, is it greedy or is it?
It's what you deserve.
Right.
It's what you deserve.
Well, not only that, but FedEx isn't going to lose. FedEx, the big
They don't lose
amorphous. Yeah, they're not going
the
to.
non-union FedEx.
Yeah, they're not going to.
Right.
They're not going to stop the operation to see if you're okay.
No. We would love to go after FedEx.
Oh, FedEx. I've been around UPS drivers and delivery guys and truck drivers long enough to know that there is sometimes a peer pressure, right,
to not file
claims. And I think for every fake claim there is, in my experience, there's probably 10 people that didn't file a claim.
Did you ever work in a warehouse?
Oh yeah.
So did they have the sign like 42 days without an accident?
Oh yeah.
Like, fuck that. They're just deterring people because they want their T-shirt or their barbecue lunch.
Right. Or you get the points for the drawing on the prize.
Right.
Yeah. Well, the thing is now I'm 50 and I've had a spinal fusion, which was a non-workman's comp thing, but I guarantee you that
called me. We could have figured out a way.
Well, I can tell you after 25 years of various jobs in a warehouse and in a truck and everything else that, I used up definitely part of my body.
Of course.
And nobody's going to look out for you,
No, they don't. This is a perfect segue.
Because I'm reminded of Joe Montana, but go ahead.
So football players. This is a perfect segue into football players. I fight this battle daily. I get calls from athletes.
Athletes, what kind of athletes?
Football players, hockey players, any professional athlete. I get calls from these guys. I have yet to represent a female professional athlete, but hopefully I will. But
okay, Simone Biles is out there.
It's true. If I could find a way to get in.
Good for her, by the way. But go ahead.
So these guys. Sometimes I run into these guys who are like, I can't file a workers' comp claim. One guy I represent has a serious brain injury. He told me when we first met, I don't know about this.
The CTE
I don't know
stuff.
about this.
Right.
And I said, well, you have to protect yourself. Right? And sure enough, we're getting to the end of the case now. And he confides in me privately how much he's struggling. But he will not pursue his claim because it's like a sign of weakness.
And it's not money at this point.
It's crazy. No, for some of those guys, some of those guys need the money.
If you look at football, I mean, how big's a NFL roster? 70 players?
45 guys on the active roster.
Or 45 guys on an active roster? Yeah. So, I mean, that's a lot of, if you're the 40th guy.
Well, those are the guys that don't want to file.
No, you're not going to file.
Because they're like, this is going to be held against me. But here's the irony.
And then you get a check mark from one team, and then he's got an attitude or some bullshit like that, right?
This is the irony of this. So the way they divide up the revenue in the NFL, seeing how the NFL and the Players Association negotiate a contract makes like the typical UPS.
Don't get me started.
Like it's
on the
so
NFL,
like
on the
it's
NFL
so
contract.
different, right? So they're negotiating a percentage of the pie. Right. So all football related income, they get a percentage of, and it gets divided by number of teams. And that's how they come up with a salary cap. Right. So these guys don't understand that I need to do a little more explaining.
Yes.
If name your what's your favorite NFL team?
Well, I'm a Raider fan.
You're a Raider fan.
Yeah,
okay.
Still.
So Derek Carr,
yeah.
Not anymore, but Derek Carr gets hurt,
he goes and says something stupid like all lives matter again or something.
No, but suppose
you remember that?
I do remember. Suppose he gets helmet in the back, right?
Right. The offensive line, the offensive line isn't blocked for him anymore.
So he's hurt, and he goes and gets an MRI. Who's paying for that MRI? Who do you think pays for that?
The team.
No.
The league?
No. The insurance company. They file a claim. The team files a workers' comp claim. And that image, that treatment is paid for not by the Raiders, but by an insurance company of the Raiders. Right? So the Raiders
MetLife or whoever.
The Raiders orthopedic surgeon is not a Raider employee.
Wait a minute, he's not.
He's not an employee.
Dr. Raider is not.
Dr. Raider is not a Raider employee. He's a private.
He's still got a commitment to excellence, though.
He still does. Yeah. 49ers.
No, but he's completely unrelated to the team. Other than
they probably say come travel with the team.
Right.
And yeah, we want you to be our surgeon, but you're not an employee. We're going to give you a lot of business because a lot of our guys are going to get hurt this year, but you're not an employee. So that insurance policy costs a lot of money, right? So let's say that premium that is $1 million. Mm-hmm. Well, guess who's paying for their own insurance premium? The players.
So that's bargained into their
In what world
CBA?
So you have players basically paying for their own workers' comp premium.
That's some real skin in the game bullshit there.
And then players, and then this is what's crazy. And then players not wanting to file claims. It's crazy, and it's. Whenever I get the chance, I harp on this fact to players. The team is taking advantage of the insurance policy because they don't want to pay for the treatment.
Right.
You're entitled to benefits, one of which is future medical for life. By not filing, you're only screwing yourself.
Right.
It's crazy that guys don't do it, but they feel some guys feel some weird sense
it's a macho thing,
weakness in filing. And to the union's credit, they've really, really fought that battle. I mean, they want guys filing because it's their right.
Well, what surprised me is way back in the day when the 49ers were making all their championship runs and Montana got hurt, somebody was telling me Montana filed a workman's comp claim.
He did. I think he has a 99% award against the 49ers. And here's why that matters.
And this is Joe Montana.
It's not about the money.
Who, prior to Brady, was the greatest of all time.
For sure.
And is getting workman's comp like he's a warehouse guy.
But what he's getting is future medical for life.
Right.
And I tell every player I talk to, you're superhuman now. You're just going to be an old dude at some point.
He's getting legal protection too for, you know what I mean? Because obviously it's not about just paying for the money in the moment.
It's funny when you actually explain to guys that you're protecting them down the road, they're a lot more understanding.
Because the team,
doesn't want
any, especially the team is going to cover their ass.
For sure.
First fucking thing.
No, in fact, what the teams do a lot of is they'll hand a player a notice, they'll leave it in their locker, and they'll say, oh, just sign there. It's to protect you. Well, no, it's not. It's to screw you so that when you're done with the team in 5 years and you go back to file your workers' comp claims, and
your body's shot.
Oh, you signed a waiver. You signed something saying you didn't have any injuries. Why would you sign that? Oh, they just told me to sign.
So that's part of the physical, I would imagine,
and
too.
The exit season physical, on the very bottom of your exit season physical says, I've been advised of my workers' comp rights. I have no injuries, blah, blah, blah. And those guys, they want to go home And the last thing they want to do is say, oh, every part of my body hurts, because they want to play.
Right. Well, and especially if you're leading the wedge on kickoffs or something, those are the guys that, you could get cut or not.
It has fundamentally changed the way I watch football. And I can't say I'm happy about that.
I've kind of been getting away from football, man, with the whole CTE thing. And then they talk about player safety, and then they want to extend the season, which is so contradictory.
How about this story? A player called me maybe 3 weeks ago.
And we're talking about NFL players.
NFL players. A player called me 3 weeks ago and told me that the team gave him an option where if he accepted the option about
geez, you got to deal with agents too.
It was tied. It was tied to his contract. That if he took that option, they would give him an MRI.
Oh my God!
They are as cutthroat as it gets. And
what a classic employer.
And I feel, and that's why it's changed it for me, because like,
by the way, not all employers are bad, but they're like unions and cops and people. They're bad. There are bad ones and good ones.
Yeah. But this just, like, I feel bad walking into a stadium and rooting for the 49ers, knowing that this employer is, if I just look at them as an employer, it's not that they're a bad employer. It's just that they're running that business and
their legal department's conniving.
And they don't, like, they're literally screwing over some of my clients. And why do I want to support that by giving my money to that team?
Right.
And that's why it's made it a little weird for me to follow football. I watch now and I see a guy injured and I'm like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Like, that's not good. And, like,
so if you're injured, I never thought about it, but if you're a football player, if you're a pro football player and you're injured, it's workman's comp.
You're an employee. Same rights apply.
Unless you're a college player.
Yeah, then you're not an employee.
Oh my God, that's a whole nother thing.
I'm so happy.
Yeah, they're finally.
That they have NLI rights, because in what world can you be really great at something and people want to pay you to be a spokesperson for that?
Right,
and you're like,
right.
No, I can't take it. I can't do that.
Or we could hide it or cheat.
Your coach is making millions of dollars and you can't profit off your own name? That's crazy to me.
Going back to the Ed O'Bannon thing.
Yeah.
Do you know about that? And yeah.
I don't remember the details about the case, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the thing with the Ed O'Bannon thing is he's playing a video game
and it's him.
With him in the game.
Yeah.
And he's in his dorm room or whatever. And he's like, I can't get any money for this.
It's literally me. It looks like me. It's my number.
It's my name on the jersey.
It's my size. It's my attributes. And I can't make a penny. That's crazy. And I grew up playing those video games.
Yeah. And
I'd always just laugh because
it's crazy.
It's obviously the player, but
right.
Just that bothered me.
The NC2A is
it bothered me that they didn't get to profit off it the same way it bothers me that they don't get medical coverage. Because a lot of these guys show up to the NFL and I'll talk to them and they're like, oh yeah, it's an old college injury. And they have no coverage for that.
Oh, geez. And now they got to sign off too that their knees, they got a gimpy knee.
Easy example.
So the team's not responsible because his knee's back from college. He had a knee problem.
Guys that have multiple knee surgeries in college and they have no ability to go get medical, or guys that have, I mean, what about the guy I don't see in the NFL? A guy that just has a severe injury in college.
A career-ending injury.
Tough.
Yeah. Tough luck.
Tough luck. Oh, well, we gave you a college ride. and I'm not saying that's not valuable.
Right.
But
relative to
no, I mean,
you know what? Give the coach an education and don't pay him.
Or
see how that goes.
Or yeah, how about that? Or at least provide the guy medical protection for the rest of his life.
Right.
Right. Like do something to help that kid. And instead,
so how does that work? Goodbye. So it seems pretty obvious now that if you're a pro and you're hurt on the field, it's a workman's comp claim because you're at work.
They're not employees.
It's just that simple in college.
It's that simple.
So nobody's responsible for the injury but the player.
Mm-hmm. They're not employees.
Man. Well, I would, It's
just totally crazy. It's why, and we don't have to get into it. But it's why the
I mean, if you can go pro then, or sit out, I'm trying to think who sat out their last college year to go pro.
It's a no-brainer for me, right?
Yeah.
Like put yourself in bubble wrap and wait and wait until your name is called.
Once you become,
because as soon as you sign your name, they're going to forward you a multi-million-dollar check. Some of the players that I've talked to, I have found out have insurance policies. So when they become that good,
you hear about that
they
sometimes,
will go pay for an insurance policy. But that's still not enough.
But if they can afford it too.
If they can afford it, right? If they come from a background that allows it. I did hear...
Can we invest in that?
That'd be a good idea.
No, I'm serious. You know what I mean? We'll pay for your policy, or we'll take a share of your policy
for 1% of your earnings.
Yeah.
Right? No, I don't. I'm sure someone's thought of that. But it's why the whole tech world, Uber drivers, it's why that drove me nuts.
Well, there's one thing when I saw that we were gonna talk. There's one thing that's kind of newsy right now, which I wanted to get your opinion on, and that is these content moderators for like YouTube and Facebook. Do you know about this?
No.
So any horrible thing you can imagine, people try to upload to YouTube and Facebook.
Right.
And so these things get marked or flagged, and then there's people's jobs. Their job is to watch all this stuff and see if it's objectionable or not.
Right.
And the horror, the horrible things they have to see, and on a basis. So
are they employees? Like,
no, of course not. No, Facebook,
or they just say we're looking for people to.
So Facebook hires out another company who employs these people, right? And so their big argument is they need mental health care.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, from some of the traumatic things they're subjected to all the time.
Absolutely.
And they're having trouble getting it, you know. But I thought that was really interesting because it's something you don't think about. What an awful job that would be.
We see that a lot with police and fire.
Well, and it reminds me of a case going back who was a member and also a good friend who was constantly being harassed by a supervisor and tried to pursue a mental health workman's comp.
Right.
Which is, from what I've heard in my experience, nearly impossible to prove.
It's harder, and you get a lot of rolling eyes from doctors, from sometimes judges, but sometimes all the time defense attorneys.
Right.
Oh, come on.
Right.
Like this is your injury.
And it was, and in this case, it was crystal clear to me. But even still, it was like you're better off pursuing it as a disability case and not a comp case because. You could create a whole nother issue just trying to pursue it as comp case.
And the legislature made, we call them psychiatric cases, made them harder to prove. So you actually have a standard. Whereas a physical injury, if you get hurt on the job, even if you've had 10 prior ankle injuries,
right? If
you twist your ankle, it's still an injury on the job, right? For a psychiatric injury, you have to prove predominant cause. It has to be more than 50%, just the basic rule.
Right.
So you have people who have a whole host of trauma in their life, and then they have a work event.
Or they're just married. Can I
have kids? Right. Right. They've experienced a lot. I mean, they've lived life.
Well, so in this guy's case, what happened was he had been friends with one of the management people 10 years prior.
Right.
And because of that relationship, that kind of overrode anything else that might have been work related.
Yeah. And what,
by the way, you guys weren't involved in this at all.
Okay. What a lot of people don't understand is there's a difference between the standard of injury and what we call the standard for permanent disability apportionment, we call it. So for example, if you have a whole awful history,
they did a number on him too with investigators.
We're talking worst of the worst stuff, right? You've had trauma in your life, family members die, you've had, let's say you were abused as a child, like just a rough life.
Right.
And then you go to work.
Basically, you can't be abused at work then.
Is sort of what people say, right? But the reality is that's still an injury. You were working just fine. You entered the labor market. You got a job. You were successful until this awful supervisor, as long as it's not what we call a good faith personnel action, but this awful supervisor treated you a certain way. you can still have an injury and just what we call apportion out a lot of the disability to prior stuff. But a lot of times they'll just lump it all together and say, no, bad history, so no injury.
Right.
Like that person can't have an injury now. And I've talked to some doctors and they said that, I seem to be using this word a lot today, it's ass backwards because somebody who goes through that trauma and gets through it is probably mentally stronger than somebody who has never dealt with trauma in their life.
Or has better tools and everything else.
Right.
Right.
And so to get through all that and still be working and succeeding in life and then to have an event that takes you off your path, that event's probably more of a big deal. But yet in workers' comp, no, that person, bad history, they can't have an injury. I represent an injured worker who she experienced some awful things in a courtroom. Awful things. She was a clerk for some hearings for criminal proceedings, so like rapists, murderers, and she's in the courtroom with these people, hearing the details. Significant trauma that she has suffered, and
she's got to do that. That case is over. Another case comes up, right?
And you have an insurance company that's like, no, this lady's fine. I'm like, what? Like, let's lock you in a courtroom with these people hearing those details, and you think you'll be okay?
Right.
Like
over and over and over.
This poor lady doesn't feel safe. I don't blame her. That's her reality. She lived that, and yet, insurance company, no, nothing wrong with it.
Well, it's like police.
She's milking
too.
The system.
Police. I can't imagine police that have like long-term careers because you're seeing the worst of people, the worst of people all the time.
Yeah.
You know, and that, you know, how they maintain their sanity is just beyond me.
There's a saying, I don't know.
And they've had their issues. And you know, I'm like, hey, police, you know, all these issues are legitimate. And I think they need to pay them more to get a better quality of person. And in addition, train them more, you know?
Well, we saw, I don't know the specifics, but I think there was some legislation in New York after September 11th that protected those first responders.
Oh.
And I know that we obviously have legislation in California that protects safety officers.
That's what's funny. I remember, so Jon Stewart, the comedian / Daily Show host.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He was out there. They were still trying to get support and benefits for first responders on 9/11.
I remember that.
And if anybody you think that deserves it would be taken care of.
Saw the worst of the worst.
And they're still,
and we're screwing with these people.
Trying to screw over those people, you know?
We tell all of our clients.
Insurance companies are the worst.
The insurance company is not your friend. One of my partners, I didn't know this history. He moved out here after, I'm going to butcher this story.
Yeah, go ahead.
He knows he knows all the details. I don't know.
I get stories wrong all the time.
So he moved out here after Katrina in New Orleans, right?
Ooh.
Disaster, right? Natural disaster. He said he had to sue his own insurance company. He lost his house in Katrina. It flooded his house, obviously.
Yeah. There was this thing called a hurricane.
Right.
Right.
And he said he had to sue his insurance company to get them, his homeowner's insurance, to get them to cover the loss. Like, really? They're going to spread the losses to me anyway. Talk about a great business. If they pay a lot, they just make everyone else pay for that loss. They can't ever lose money.
And I feel like they're always going to test everybody a little bit. Like, you know, can you get through the phone menu? Can you get through the callbacks? Can you get through the paperwork to actually file a claim?
And to bring it full circle.
Yes.
This is why we get phone calls from people and they say, well, I was told to call a lawyer. Do I need a lawyer? And I say, you trust the insurance company? Well, they're nice to me. No, the system is set up. The workers' comp system is set up.
Yeah, so workman's comp, bring it home.
Well, first off, you'd get in trouble for calling it workman's compensation.
It's workers' comp.
It's workers' comp.
It's a slip.
Right? You'll get in trouble. So I got in trouble.
You should get in trouble.
I had two.
How dare you?
My first job was I had two female partners at a law firm, and I didn't know what I was doing. The first day I was reading a statute to them, And it said workman's compensation in the statute. In
Yeah,
the law.
all the old contracts I used to do said workman's.
And they lost it on me.
How dare you?
And I said, well, I'm just reading. So since then, I don't know why my mind picks it up.
No, it's
whenever
good
somebody
too. And
says
people hang
workman's.
on to that. People hang on to that. They're like, oh, well, the art of the language should be, and it's like, if it
call it workers.
Yeah, if it offends somebody, then it's not worth having.
Yeah.
It's just that simple. It's like the Redskins, you know? Is it really worth arguing over the name?
No, or the Indians.
Or the Indians?
Right. Who cares?
I know.
So we tell people all the time, we go into meetings with employees and we say, the system is not set up to where they're just going to give you benefits. You have to fight for what you're entitled to. They'll send you to a doctor who doesn't want to help you, a doctor who's paid by the insurance company,
right,
whose whole goal is to screw you.
Occupational
health,
oh,
right? There, you could literally walk in there with your arm hanging by like a tendon, and they'd tell you to go back to work.
You know, right? The best occupational health place I ever went to, and I had a physical job, I had a lot of injuries, was Kaiser, and that company did not stick with Kaiser very long because Kaiser didn't care. They didn't play that game.
And now they do. So they have a whole division, Kaiser Occupational Medicine,
right?
Which is not the same as going to your normal Kaiser. They're
firewalled now.
They are paid by the employer, not an insurance plan. They're paid by the employer. And I always say when Kaiser Occupational Medicine goes to X insurance company and says, we want your business, what do you think they're selling them?
Right.
We will get your people back to work as quickly and cheaply as possible. And damn it, they do.
With the least liability.
And they do. I mean, in what world do you have people who walk in with a shoulder injury and they're said, well, let's do 10 physical therapy sessions. And if it still hurts, then we'll do an MRI.
Right.
And meanwhile, you probably 90% of those people are in more pain because
so
they have a torn something in their shoulder.
But Justin, so I'm an employee, right?
Yeah.
I see my employer every day. I know them. I have a level of comfort with them. You're an outsider. You're some attorney. You don't know me. You don't know them.
Right.
So I get hurt at work. I mean, I'm inclined to listen to the people that I know.
And you should.
Right.
That's the first problem. I mean,
but
I get it.
What I know, but what I've always told people too is you can only trust somebody in that situation as much as they're allowed to to help you, you know. And if some boss's boss, and it's different when it's a mom and pop, but if it's some corporation, some mid-level manager guy is going to go, no, you're not going to help that guy. Get him back to work.
I have no interest. I mean, that's why we try to educate members on the importance of pre-designating. You can actually
so I want to cover a
your
couple
doctor.
Things. I want to cover pre-designating, and then also for Joe Schmo, because the other thing that I think that I would think some people would be concerned about is cost too. Yeah. So pre-designating. I mean, how does that work? Because I know the laws change. It seems like it changes every couple of years.
You can pick your workers' comp doctor in advance of having an injury. Your doctor. And when you do that, you avoid all of the really rigid rules that are set up in workers' comp.
I've had a doctor say in the past that they don't do comp. My regular.
So the doctor has to agree. That's the hard part.
Right.
But what an educated person will do, and most don't understand this, is say to your doctor, look, I just need you to sign the form. And if I get hurt, I'm going to come in and you can just refer me to any
over.
doctor.
That's what I was going to say. Right.
Refer me to. You don't have
That's
to.
That's why I brought it up because
yeah. But you have to get the doctor to say that. By the way, Kaiser won't do this. Kaiser basically says, no, that's our occupational medicine people. So anyone with Kaiser can tune out, right? So,
gotcha.
But even if you have
I'm a Kaiser guy.
It's worth it. I am too. I've had 3 kids at Kaiser. I mean, we have the same benefits.
I know. I just took the needle down at 99 Montecito.
So if you can pre-designate, you can avoid the occupational health. It's worth it and I've told friends of this who have
two
hard
things.
jobs.
And then the other question I have is, does that person have to have treated you before?
So treated is a weird word. They have to have
And
seen
again,
you
we can cut all
before.
this out if it's weird, but
They have to have seen you before. I don't know what level of treatment is required. So what I have always suggested
right.
is if you, and I've told friends this who have warehouse jobs, I've said, you're going to get hurt at some point. You have a heavy job.
Yeah, you're going to get hurt.
It's going to happen.
It's going to happen. It's so true.
If you have a family doctor who you've seen, go pay that guy $100 or gal. Go
Yeah.
pay him $100. See him one time. Sign the form. Turn in the form to your employer, and you've just avoided occupational medicine. You have saved yourself so much headache when you eventually do get hurt.
Right.
You will laugh at how easy that was and how good of an idea that was. But most people are like, oh, I'm not going to get hurt. I'm superhuman. Until they lift the box the wrong way. And
everybody thinks they're not going to get hurt. That's the funny part.
And then they do. And that in a nutshell is why there's an adage that attorneys are drunks, right? You've probably heard
No, I
that.
haven't heard this.
That I think the highest of any profession. Like,
By the way, I've been on an attorney streak for some reason too.
so the alcoholic rate of attorneys is obscene.
Oh, okay.
And I think, and no one knows why, but I think it's because we spend our day dealing with other people's problems.
Boy,
right?
I know that one.
So this is a classic example of why I love what we do, because I literally get people calling me on their worst day. They never thought they'd get hurt. I make good money. I have family. I pay my rent. I pay my mortgage.
And I'm
I have
safe.
bills. I'm safe. And then they get hurt. And they get that first check, and it's 2/3 of what they used to make, and they're freaking out. I can't afford to live a life.
I have kids, so we always check phones.
So I can't.
Some people are like, "Oh, don't look at your phone," and while you're, it's like I have kids. So.
Speaking of which, the guy who's calling me dumped his truck. Perfect example. Teamster member,
Right.
successful family, kids,
Allegedly.
great family. Brakes gave out on his truck, flipped it, and was in the ICU for 4
geez.
weeks. Like, this is why I love what we do, because I get to help people through that crisis in their life and hopefully steer them back onto the right course.
Well, getting to that point earlier is, I know my employer. I know I've got a relationship with them. I don't know you at all, but the truth is it's not your employer handling somebody's injury. It's their insurance company.
Insurance company. The employer literally sends a form to their insurance company.
And they're
And it's out of their hands.
they're driving from that point. They tell them,
Yeah.
I don't give a shit if that's your best friend.
Yeah.
You're going to deny this, or you're going to try to get him back to work.
The only thing the employer knows from that point on is
I'm saying, why should somebody call you if they feel like, I've worked with Bobby for 20 years
because they're not dealing with Bobby. And even though Bobby may want to help them,
Bobby's the face of them though.
the insurance company is the one paying the bills, and the insurance company has no interest in protecting them, has no interest in their health. Protecting them, is solely interested in, how do I get out of this claim as cheaply as possible? There's a claim. The employer faxed it over. My job is to close it as quickly as
Get
possible.
rid of little claims and turn big claims into little claims.
And they need, and any person who doesn't think they need help, adjusters go to school. They have to go to training to do their job. And you think an employee it's a fair fight when an employee is dealing with that person? It's not
Right.
fair. It's not a fair fight. So they need a lawyer. And what's crazy, and this is as to your next question,
Yeah. So what's it going to cost
we
me?
pay for ourselves. That's what's so crazy about this.
So that's written into the statute, right?
We're on a contingency fee basis.
Yep.
So I get this question all day. Like, I can't afford a lawyer. And I say, dude, you can't not afford to have me, and I don't cost you anything.
Well, that's the thing that's crazy, because that's the first thing I know, that when I was young, especially when you're younger, you don't understand these things,
Right. We take a percentage of your recovery at the end. If we don't get your recovery, we don't get paid. And our involvement will increase the value of your case anyway.
Well, what's funny is too, just talking about the particulars of your firm, is just having your firm call, or so this is personal experience now, and it's going to sound like a testimonial, but having referred people to boxerlaw.com for years,
Right.
just the involvement of your firm has ended so many shenanigans for people about arguing whether or not they're going to get physical therapy or what.
Yeah.
The care gets instantly better and people don't get fucked with that have you on their side has been my experience.
And that's our goal, right?
Right.
I mean, that our goal is to make it so that you're not going to get fucked with on the basic
It's easier
needs.
to fuck with the guy that doesn't have you guys.
Yeah. And we're talking basics like an MRI. This is why I always laugh at insurance companies because at industry events, I'll talk to people.
Is that like if you don't test for COVID, you don't find COVID, right? If you don't get an MRI.
We'll never know. So yeah, it's amazing. Rates have gone, COVID rates are way down, right? Of course there's more. We're testing more.
Nobody told, you didn't tear a meniscus. We didn't get an MRI.
So at industry events, we often get asked like, well, why do people come find a lawyer? It's money, right? That's the thought. They're after money. I don't remember the last injured worker who has come to see me talking about money. They come because I just want an MRI. I don't know what's wrong with my shoulder.
Right.
Or my back's bad and I can't have physical therapy.
They tell me I'm fine.
Or I love this one. I fell and I hurt my back and my knee and the doctor's telling me I can only have one body part.
Oh, really? Is that a thing?
That's a thing. Like the occupational medicine doctor told me I'm only allowed to treat for one body part. Like what? Since when is that a thing? Right?
Oh
like
my God.
that's not. You just made that up.
But then half of the people, right? It's like the sports, tip gambling people, right? I mean, half of the people are going to go away then and say, well, okay, I can only pick one.
And that happens.
Somebody's got at the Insurance Statistic Institute. They know exactly how many people will walk away from a problem just by being challenged on it.
They do studies on when they change a law on the savings that changed law has created. And to a lot of attorneys, we laugh because we're like, well, that law didn't help anyone. But it's the cases we don't see.
It seems like a lot of times too, like the law's there to protect the employers and not the employees.
Don't get me started. I mean,
what do you mean? Don't get you started?
I praise people.
The law's there to handcuff you guys, right?
The Teamsters, UFCW, SEIU. I mean, all these unions have people fighting, and the legislature just continues to punish injured workers, and it's amazing to me why this issue doesn't get more traction, because everyone's going to get hurt on the job, but nobody believes they'll get hurt.
Yeah.
Right?
If you work for a living,
you're going to get hurt.
You're going to get hurt. If you physically work,
and yet these issues get no traction, right? Like nobody cares whether, your politician runs on a workers' comp platform. That doesn't move the needle. Right. But yet they'll make statements like make the state more business friendly. You've probably heard that.
Yeah.
What do you think that means? It means cutting workers' comp costs, cutting insurance costs. Well, who's that going to screw over?
Right.
Workers,
well,
labor.
Yeah, they hold workers hostage for everything now.
And it's insane.
You don't cut our taxes.
And what it's doing is, and this is
if you
a
don't cut our taxes,
discussion.
The workers get it. We're going to cut them.
It's screwing over the health and welfare funds, because when
oh, no doubt,
when you can't get treatment for your work injury through workers' comp,
I can personally
you go use your private insurance.
TBT. I'm not saying I ever did it, but I did it a lot. Where it was just workman's comp. So being a union member, going back to years past myself, and I know several people that would deal with this, it was so much harder to get decent care and treatment through a workman's comp case that you go through your regular insurance.
Yeah. And who's that? Who's paying for that?
Well, everybody.
Yeah. So it's like, great. So we're shifting.
Insurance company wins again.
So insurance company wins. So
just clip another cigar and toast another brandy.
It's like these issues get no traction. They affect everybody, but yet,
well, it's apathy.
It just kills me. And we have marketing events. We host there's an applicant attorney association. We have a.
So how does that work? I get injured at work. I'm a union member or not a union member. I work for a living.
You're on your own. unless you find a lawyer.
So I go to boxerlaw.com and just call in. The switchboard knows what to do.
835-510-835-8870 and we'll get you to an attorney, and the attorney can jump in right away and help. And again, I always get, well, what does this cost me?
Right.
I've never sent a bill to an injured worker in my life.
When do I sign something?
So
saying that
it's a free consultation, first of all.
Okay.
So to figure out if you need a lawyer.
Walk me through.
All right. So
I get hurt. I call. You say, come on down. We're going to talk.
How'd you get hurt?
Yeah.
Are you getting treatment? Are you working? Just the basics.
You know, it's another tricky one too. And I made you do something and then I'm going in a different direction. But is that the cumulative injuries too? Because it's always been my understanding that there needs to be like an event.
Yeah. People don't know. This is a really funny story. I had a guy who calls me.
Well, no, that you need an event to like start the injury, whereas I've worn out my knee.
Let me give you the perfect example.
I'm a garbage man. I've worn out my knee.
I have a client who was an AC Transit bus driver who says, Justin, my neck is killing me. I go over all these bumps. I'm staring at the road. My neck is killing me. I've been doing this for 20 years. I said, that's a classic repetitive stress injury. So we file it. He comes to see me. I file it, meaning I send the first notice to the employer that my client has an injury.
Oh, really? So the workman's comp forms and all that stuff?
I start the process.
Oh, okay. You can do that.
I can do that. AC Transit.
I should know that, by the way.
Says to him, fill out this form. And he says, well, how do I fill it out? Like, well, when were you hurt?
Exactly. That's my point.
So he calls me and I said, just say it was a repetitive stress injury. They're telling me it can't be that. I need to put what bus I was on and where I was when I got hurt.
Because that's what their training book says.
That's what their training book says. And that's not the law. I mean, literally, a cumulative trauma is an acceptable form of injury, but this large employer couldn't figure it out that that's what the claim was, and they made my client feel like an idiot.
No, I feel like an idiot.
He's like, I just filed a claim, but I wasn't. So I had to walk him through it, and I helped him through it, and we did it, and they still were thinking, you're doing this all wrong, but this literally we did this 2 weeks ago, so. Totally an acceptable form of injury. And it's one that when you have a union member who works 30 years in a warehouse lifting or driving a truck for 20 years or doing whatever they're doing, and their body is just worn out.
Well, that's the thing. You wouldn't expect a car to go 100,000 miles without needing some repair,
Right. And even if, just like you said, even if you've occasionally gone to your own doctor and gotten massage or acupuncture or whatever.
Spinal fusion.
Spinal fusion's a little harder, but if you've gotten some treatment, like at the end of your employment, that you should be filing a cumulative trauma claim. It's really simple to me.
Well, if you're a football
player, you on a couch for 30 years, would you be in the same shape as you are now? Probably not.
Right.
Your body is beaten up. What's the difference? Well, I've been working.
Right.
Okay. Well,
I've been working for Boxer+Gerson.
The employers, we're responsible for that, right?
Right.
And we would tell our employees.
I've got a klutzy assistant. And
we would tell our employees to file a workers' comp claim.
Right.
There's no, we don't hide from that. We'd be really awful if we tried to tell our employees not to file workers' comp claims.
That's true. You would be awful.
We don't.
And you're not awful.
No, we would tell any person.
So you're saying not only that, but the firm practices what they preach.
Yeah, union shop. We're proud of that fact. I mean that our.
But getting back to that earlier point, which is amazing, because the interests of a union worker and a non-union worker, I never even thought of the difference.
Totally different. Right? I mean, you could have we represent people of all different.
Well, just using the FedEx UPS guy,
So. Yeah, I mean, FedEx is a bad example. They make, I don't know what, do they make decent money?
Right. But even if you're hurt at FedEx, it's like, fuck it. Let me
go get a job at UPS.
Right. I can get a job. Let me get what I can out of FedEx and I'll go somewhere else.
Right. I don't have a pension I'm building.
Right.
I don't have any of these things that are.
I don't have any long-term commitments to these people.
Right. Get me out. And the employers are keen on that. They will make offers. You're not supposed to do resignations in workers' comp. The judges will tell you it doesn't happen. but
Yeah, right.
all the time we get insurance companies saying to us, look, here's an offer of $100,000, but I need your client to go away.
Right. Wink.
Wink. And look, we present that to our client. And for the most part, you have people who are like, fuck that job. I made $15 an hour. Why don't I can go find another job for $15 an hour. Sure, I'll resign. You don't get that with a union member. They're like, even if you pay me $100,000, I make that money in 2 years, and I'm paying into my retirement, and like that's not worth it for me. That's a bad deal, and they're right. And
absolutely,
and that's why
my job's not worth.
You really have to understand that fact to understand why a union member might be motivated differently than a non-union member. That's critical to representing somebody. And it's scary when you see people.
So how did the firm get started? I mean, you guys are big now. So you're managing partners. So how much time do you spend managing, and how much time do you spend with clients?
Well, COVID has sort of made that a really weird dynamic. I mean, we have lawyers working. Some are in the office, some are at home.
When did you start as managing partner?
3 years ago.
3 years ago. So a year and a half of that's been.
It's been a wild ride.
Yeah.
To say the least.
Congratulations.
And I always joke with some friends of mine. I don't pride myself as being some.
Oh my God! Wait a minute. You're the employer.
I'm the bad employer. Yeah. Right. So I don't pride myself on being some expert employer. It's the first management business job wizard I've had. Right? I think I was just the guy suckered into doing it. So the COVID has made me realize there's like the guidance we're given to run a firm or to run a business in this environment is so awful. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've gone to our lawyer and said, what the hell do I do now? Like, can I require vaccines or not? Can I ask about a vaccine or not? I've had talks with some of the secretary treasurers at the locals, and I'm like, well, here's what we're doing. I don't know if this is right or wrong. I mean, today the federal government announced that they're going to, quote, require vaccines, even though it's not a real requirement.
Well, they're going to require it or testing. I don't know what that does.
And I don't know if you saw, but maybe 2 months ago, the city and county came up with a rule that we're requiring all city and county employees to be vaccinated. Well, except they're not. It doesn't even go into effect until the FDA approves of the vaccine. And then there's religious and medical exemptions. So it's like everyone has these different rules.
It's shocking.
Nobody knows what to do.
Well, part of it is honestly, I have strong feelings on this subject, but it was never, people weren't stupid enough for it to be a question before. It's like, there's a vaccine and it's FDA approved, and my doctor says get the vaccine.
But I'm not doing it.
But I'm going to listen to some guy on Facebook because my fucking doctor doesn't know what he's talking about.
Right. And it's been such a weird business environment.
I was like, where do I get the shot? Speaking of COVID though, so what if I get now?
COVID claims are scary. I mean, we've had COVID death claims.
Right.
I've seen some awful stuff.
I'm a nurse and I come down with COVID.
I have.
Do I call you guys?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And what's scary about COVID is,
you got the long haulers.
We don't know. So I represent a long hauler now who is the scariest thing. So just
backing up. We're talking about COVID in regards to workers' comp. In regards
to workers' comp.
Yeah.
She COVID tested positive. Now she doesn't test positive anymore.
Whoa.
But we're 9 months after the fact. She cannot work more than 6 hours a day. At the 6 hour mark, she literally can't drive herself home because that's how exhausted she is. This is a woman who has had this, she's a doctor, has had this job for decades.
Never had a problem.
Yeah. She gets COVID. She cannot work. So Kaiser says, sorry, got nothing for you. And
we can't. We're not going to put you.
We're not going to employ 6 hour doctors.
We're not going to put you on a modified schedule.
Well, they did, and now they're like, we're done. We don't have permanent 6 hour doctors. So this poor lady's going to lose her job.
Well, the weird thing is being a union guy for a minute, is now you've got issues of seniority and everything else because somebody else, some other doctor who has 3 young children might want a 6-hour shift.
It's really it gets
tricky, you know.
It gets tricky, but it's crazy to me because we also don't know. Well,
but what I've told people in that scenario too is then go out and get COVID because it's not apples to apples, right?
Right. Here, go
get COVID, and then COVID. You can have the 6-hour shift.
So the treatment for that the long haulers have received is just, it's not even existent.
Yeah,
I mean, they sent my client to a psychologist. Like, what is a psychologist going to do? She's mentally fine. She just can't. She has ringing in her ears. She has total exhaustion, and there's nothing they can do to treat it. Every test they've run, clean.
Right.
They have no idea why she still has this problem. If you file the claim on time,
she can make an argument. Whereas in the future, if you don't raise your hand,
you don't raise your hand, you're SOL.
Yeah.
And then what? Then you have these.
But what's crazy is I would imagine
50
even
years from now, who knows what damage this is going to do to that person's body?
Right.
I mean, a few of my professional football players got COVID, and they're like, "No, I'm fine. I didn't even have a symptom."
Right.
And I'm thinking, dude, if your lung capacity is impacted like 5%, you will notice that. I probably
How many
would
downs
notice,
is that?
Right?
Yeah.
You would notice that.
Well, not only that, your body is your living, you know.
Everything. And so I've encouraged guys to file.
And it's not like the old days with the Raiders where it was like drinking and drugs, and like these guys have figured out, I got to take care of my body.
Yeah. Totally. These guys are so precise.
There's no off season anymore.
No, I call these guys and they're mid-workout. They're like, "Oh, I got to do this workout. I'll call you back."
They hire their own nutritionists and chefs and all of that.
And the teams give them week 1, here's your protocol. Week 2, you're working on legs. Week 3, arms. Here,
right.
It's like, this is full season. One case I'll never forget this. The Raiders, a guy.
Oh shit! What if you get injured in the off season? You're in the gym working out.
Guy drops a weight on his foot. Okay.
Yeah, that happens.
Shatters his foot.
Oof.
Lost his career. He never recovered from it. The Raiders denied his claim as being work related. I'm like, in the standard NFL contract, there's an obligation that they will remain in good shape.
Right. It's like the Jeff Kent fell off his truck, washing his truck thing, right?
And literally he was doing exercises that the team emailed him to do. But you're saying that's not work related? I mean, come on now. So yeah, they ended up paying on that one. But this is what they try to do.
Right. Again, they're going to try because some other guy will go, well, yeah, you know.
This is the way these employers are.
But
they're just an employer.
But the mindset, and I know because I have this mindset too, is that I'm the one that dropped the weight. The team didn't drop the weight. I dropped the weight.
Yeah. I hear that all the time.
You know?
Right. It's my fault.
Why is it? It's my fault. It's my fault.
My fault. Yeah. It's not.
Even if it's your fault.
Yes, it's your fault. But
in
you're
the service,
doing a job in the service for
in the service of your employer, they are obligated that if you fuck up,
we're responsible.
They have a responsibility.
While doing your job.
While doing your job.
We are responsible for these benefits. So when people don't file, joke's on you, man. And that is, it pains me to see that. But
the other thing I'm trying to think of too is, because I know that people are afraid that somehow they'll get, blacklisted or they'll get a mark against them.
I've had agents call me and say, my guy's kind of a fringe guy. Is it really a good idea to file a workers' comp claim?
And I'm trying to
get that.
I'm trying to think of, and I've had some bad employers. I've been fortunate. I had a lot of good employers too, but I'm trying to think of anybody that lost their job as a result of filing comp claims.
Well, it shouldn't happen.
Well, of course, there's a lot of things, a lot of things that shouldn't happen.
They're not allowed to retaliate. There's a anti-discrimination provision in the labor code that they can't discriminate against somebody for filing an injury claim, but we can't protect the simple stuff, right? For example, one employer
if you don't go to work,
one employer who shall remain nameless,
yes,
they'll know if anyone's ever listening.
Yes,
they'll know. Everyone who gets hurt gets put on modified work with the opposite shift. So a daytime worker gets hurt.
It's supposed to be the similar work around the similar time.
So daytime worker gets hurt. released to...
Dude, you're going to get me talking all day. I could talk. Modified work is a whole...
Right. So they get put at the night shift. You ready for the job? Gate security.
Don't give up too much, but yeah.
Yeah, gate security, they have to check in every hour taking a picture to prove that they're still alive, that they're doing the job.
That they're breathing, yeah.
All it's doing is punishing the person for filing an injury claim, right? So you have people who, have family situations where maybe they're home at night, their wife works nights or opposite.
Right.
This totally destroys their existence because they got hurt on the job and now they have to work nights or they don't get paid.
Well, they're going to harass them back to work.
It's just, and the whole point of that is, well, if you can get back to full duty, you can come back right now.
Right.
Well, it's this belief that somebody files an injury claim for fun. Like it doesn't,
right.
It's not financially beneficial. It's not like, in what world do people file workers' comp claims for fun?
Right.
Yet a lot of employers just assume that.
Well, the sad thing is there's the stated intent of something and then there's the real intent. And talking about modified work, because I've told people over and over throughout the years, they're like, what I'm doing is not productive in any way.
No.
And I said, the whole purpose to me, and the other thing is they assume modified work, is modified work. So you jump in when I get this wrong, is an insurance company construct to keep employers from filing claims with the insurance company.
No.
Oh, okay.
Modified work is
but I mean,
it's there's two things going on. Perhaps the most obvious is the claim has less value, right? Because the employer is paying the person to come to modified work.
Right.
So the insurance company isn't paying the person.
Right.
I think two, the idea is
the idea is to shame people out of being hurt.
That would be number three, right? But I think the theory behind modified work is, well, if I can still use this person to my benefit, I can find work for them.
I can find something for them to do if we're going to pay them anyway.
And maybe they're more likely to get back to their full duty job more quickly if they're still coming to work every day. Because as we've seen with COVID, the longer somebody stays home, the more comfortable they get. Right?
Hey, easy. You're an employer too.
Well, so that's what I'm saying. From my perspective as an employer, in fact, I was joking with my assistant yesterday.
By the way, I would say you could make either argument. Depends if you're married or not.
It's true. My wife definitely wanted me to get back to the office. But like my assistant yesterday, she said she was going to come into the office. We have an agreement with our legal assistants and secretaries and all of our staff that they can work from home. So I said, when are you next going to come in? She said, Wednesday morning. So I go to the office Wednesday. And at like 8:45, she messages me and says, yeah, I think I'm going to stay home. And I wasn't mad.
Right.
And I said, I think the struggle is real, right? To when you're, do I really want to commute for an hour when I can just turn on my computer and work from here?
Right.
I get it. So
yeah, work has changed for sure.
There is that theory that if I force my employee to come to modified work, they're more likely to keep working, get back to full duty quicker. I believe that. But what's a big misconception is that modified duty is almost 100% is the employer's discretion.
No, the insurance company definitely is.
But it's up to the employer, right? So except in a CBA world where
True.
you may have an agreement that they provide 30 days of modified work and that's it. For a normal non-union mom and pop shop, they make a choice to offer modified work or not. And if not, they have to pay you.
Right.
If they do offer you modified work, you, the employee, have to come.
Well, and also once somebody refuses modified work,
they don't get paid.
They don't get anything.
So I get a lot of calls.
So what happens with somebody's injury in that case, though, if they're crazy enough to go down that road?
To refuse modified work?
Well, and I'm sure you guys see it a lot. I've seen in a lot of cases where the occupational health place will say, oh, no, they're okay to do X and Y. And the person's like, I can't fucking do that.
This happened to me yesterday.
I can't do that for 8 hours a day.
So I had a union member call me yesterday. The occupational medicine doctor released him to full duty 2 weeks ago. he said, I can't do that. So he never
Physically can't do it.
He said, there's no way. So he just said, I'm staying home. And he calls me and he goes,
Are we getting into QME land or?
well, so we
Right.
eventually get there, but he says, what do I do? And I said, you're going to get fired.
Right.
Like, we all remember back in high school days, like you need a note, right? You need a note signed by a parent
Right.
to not come to school. You can forge it, whatever, but they need a note. Work's no different. It's a no call, no show. If you don't have a medical note,
You just don't go.
and you just don't go, you're gonna get a point. You're gonna get written up,
Right.
and then you're gonna get terminated, and you're gonna say, "Well, it was because my injury. Like I didn't think I could work." Well, so
Yeah.
no doctor has taken you off. So I urge those people in that situation to go to the ER, go to your private doctor, get some medical note to cover the period, and get a lawyer's help to fill it in retroactively to get you those benefits. And that's why pre-designating is so important.
Get back to pre-designating
Because
everything.
if you can pick your own
how
doctor-
do I pre-designate? Because most people, for a union member, you can go talk to your union will have a form.
They have a form. We give the form. You can download the form. You can just type pre-designate into Google.
It just pops right
the
up.
state form will be there. It's really simple. You got to do it.
Got to do it.
And if you don't do it, you're stuck with occupational doctor not listening to you and telling you,
Well, and that's
only one body part. Which one? All right.
I can tell you a true story. And this was a UPS driver, and I wasn't directly involved in this case. It wasn't my member. I was just purely an observer. And the guy had danced at his wedding, right? He was out on comp.
Right.
He had danced at his wedding at the request of his wife, who was like, we got to do this dance. And it was on Facebook, right? And he's friends with the supervisor. Supervisor sees him dance on this video on Facebook, and they terminate him.
Yeah.
They terminate him. And he did one dance, which was a minute and a half or whatever, compared to like a full UPS package driver,
Right.
11 and a half hour shift to 70 pounds, and it was so absurd. Long story short is the union protected him in this case, and he got his job back because it was totally absurd. But that happens, man. People get
more absurd.
This guy couldn't do that job for 9 hours.
More absurd than that. And this hits home for
and then you can get a fresher, younger guy.
This is going to hit home if he hears this. He probably won't. But a gentleman.
What do you mean probably won't?
Well, I don't.
We have a broad audience.
I don't think he'll listen. I will tell him to listen, though.
I'm kidding. Anyway.
So he'll hear this story. So a guy hurts his knee. Insurance company sends over an investigator. Says, guy's like, okay, I hurt my knee. Yeah, I'll talk to you.
You want to race?
Buys him breakfast. Takes him out to breakfast.
The investigator.
Investigator takes this guy out to breakfast and is recording a statement. And he says...
So he's wearing a wire?
Well, he's recording it. He just tells him, I'm recording
Oh, okay.
this.
I'm going to record this. That's a recorded act.
And he says, do you go running? Do you run? Now, if I ask you, do you run? What are you thinking?
I'm thinking, no way I run.
Well, like I'm just in general. If I walked up for hanging out at a bar and I said, hey,
right,
Phil, do you run? What are you thinking? Like, you're probably thinking, do I lace up my Nikes and go running in the morning, right? For an hour? Is that
right. Am I jogging?
Am I jogging?
Well, context is so huge too. But
so
yeah.
This guy.
Am I a runner?
This guy, like a month later, is at his son's high school football game or Pop Warner.
Classic.
His son gets hurt. He jogs out to the middle of the field, right? Jogs back. District attorney prosecuted him for fraudulently pursuing insurance benefits.
Why do I know about this? Do I know about this?
You do.
Oh, okay.
Because he said he couldn't run.
Right. Oh, fuck. Are you kidding me?
He's jogging out his son on the football field. His son was injured.
Just trotting out there.
I don't care how much pain. If my son's on the football field injured, I'm going to find a way to jog out there, right?
That's what's funny.
So prosecuted over that.
Once you have kids, it's like...
So yeah, it's just, so moral of that story is when your member gets hurt, when you employee get hurt and the insurance company says, I'd like to take a recorded statement, Your
What do I say?
antenna should be up.
Right.
You say no.
Well, wait a minute. So are they going to record that for the employee's benefit?
No. Yeah.
In any circumstance,
Why would they?
it's never going to help
never.
you.
So, like if they say, how did you get hurt? Fine, tell them. But
Prosecuted.
when they start asking questions about what happened and what you physically can, you're up to something, and I want a lawyer involved.
And the sad thing is
that's what you should be thinking.
And the sad thing is, not to say that the law is a twisted, dirty game, but common sense is yes, both things can be true. Of
course,
he can go trot out and pick up his son,
but I don't run. that's
right.
And what in that case, what was even worse is like the guy had a diagnostic image showing the injury. Like he didn't make up the injury. He just said, "No, I don't run." And then they got him jogging on the football field
for 2 minutes.
Not even 2 minutes.
Yeah,
that's not running. I mean, I if someone asked me do I run, I wouldn't be thinking, have I ever jogged in my life at any point in time? But this is why, and I'll tell you, after that happened, we literally advised all the members at that employer to not speak with an investigator.
Right.
Because
that's the end of that.
The investigator is clearly doing dirty deeds for the employer at that point, trying to screw over members.
Shut that down quick as far as the union goes.
And again, this is also why having that relationship between lawyer and union is important, because we were able to sort of coordinate all that and frankly stop it. So that investigator was fired.
Right.
Because suddenly they couldn't question anybody. Nobody would listen to this guy.
Exactly.
So he'd call and say, I'd like to speak with you. No.
Right.
His name was useless. So they fired him. And
and is it really worth it? That's the thing where it's like, God, it's just
a work injury. Like in that case, it was a knee. It was, he was going to recover fine. It's like the guy dancing at his wedding, There's a video of him dancing for a minute on YouTube and they fire him, right. Right. Yeah. We see it a lot.
And that is why people need representation.
Hire a lawyer.
Hire a lawyer.
It's not only is it free, I shouldn't say free, but you're not going to pay out of your own pocket. You're going to pay out of your recovery.
Well, I'll tell you, my wife knows. Don't talk to anybody without a lawyer. Don't let the police in your house.
It's just nuts. And the biggest thing to understand is that mindset you had of, hey, I've been working with these people for 20 years. It's not your employer. It's a faceless insurance company who doesn't care about you.
That your employer pays to not care about you.
That's right. They don't care about you. And that's hard for people to realize.
Well, they're shame.
They don't want to help.
We're human beings. Like you go get a cortisone shot at Kaiser's. Speaking of Kaiser, you've got to ride the wheelchair out into the parking lot. And it's like, I don't want to ride the wheelchair out to the parking lot. I look like I can't walk or something.
Right.
No, it's a thing.
It is.
It feels weird.
But it's the hardest thing for me to say to somebody. And everybody I say to says, I understand that they don't.
God, the football players, I can't imagine.
They don't care about you. Well, the football players know. They know that the team doesn't care about them.
That's true. They know their meat.
I mean, it's sad, but very few instances has a team gone the extra mile for a player. And it's players who've been there for decades.
Look at Aaron Rodgers is having problems right now. Jesus.
He doesn't care. They just don't care.
He's a piece of meat.
Right. And the more the player realizes that, the better. And the more the employee, whether you're Aaron Rodgers or Joe, UPS driver, the more you understand.
Dude, he had a list. Aaron Rodgers had the receipts, man. He's like, you guys fucked over this guy and that guy and this guy and that guy. That's going to be awkward.
He at least has the
standing too
to say,
yeah,
no, I'm not cool with this. But
he's taking a big risk, though, right? Is it me or is he taking a big risk? Well, so he's got another year left on his contract.
Yeah, he's going to get paid $25 million.
He's one bad hit though. From if he gets hurt, he's screwed. I mean, in context, I'm sure he'll be okay.
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
I mean,
he's
his
made a lot
career-
of money.
His career earnings are okay.
true.
But it's a risk, you know. If
All
money,
those guys, I mean, I can't, I think the worst example of this is a football player I represented who had a really bad injury. He's actually a local personality. So he injured his ankle. Awful injury, awful story. Developed an infection. He was a free agent. The
Ugh.
infection returned. He's in the hospital when he gets his large offer. They didn't know. As soon as they found out, they pulled the offer. He was that close.
And he can't sign it because it's fraud.
He was that
Yeah.
close to generational wealth. Right? And literally because of a hit 2 years earlier with a recurrent infection, he never got to realize that value.
So thinking about like Kawhi Leonard, when he was with San Antonio and he had like his own crew.
The weird undisclosed injury that
Yeah, and he said he wasn't right, and they were saying play, and there was no evidence to the contrary that he wasn't right. He was right.
he was right. And some
That
of
his
the,
body was not right, and he stuck up for himself, and he took a lot of shit.
some of
I still don't
your-
like him as a player, but
some I've handled
and then he went and won a championship, and is like a super fucking badass.
I've handled cases for players who have gotten their own MRI when they were told that there was nothing wrong with them. They've then gone out and paid for their own MRI and found out that there was a lot wrong with them. The
Right.
team was literally lying to them.
Jeez, what's an MRI cost? It can't cost that much.
Out of pocket, $500-600, right? the team, but the team would just lie. No, you're good. Get back on the field. Here's your injection.
Yeah.
Pain relief. Get back on the field. And guys want to play. They
Those
trust these
injections
doctors.
are great though. Not having pain is powerful.
Well, it's dangerous, unfortunately. So multiple guys, I'm thinking of two off the top of my head, they went out and bought their own MRI, then went out and got their own surgery because the team was like, there's nothing wrong with you.
Jeez.
And I'm like, I've got torn ligaments. Like,
But
what are you
Kawhi
talking
Leonard
about?
was a high profile example. He took a lot of shit.
He did. And everyone, the media was all over him. Like,
Yeah. He's a head case.
does he
or
not
he's-
want to play?
Yeah.
Like he's weak. No,
Yeah.
he knew his body.
He knew his body. Yeah.
And
That's why
had
like Simone
people-
Biles, it's like good for her,
Well, especially when just her background being, she was a victim of Larry Nassar, right? Like she's been through
She's
it.
the only victim that has still had a career.
She's earned the right, if she doesn't feel right, for her to say,
Or
I'm out.
is it Okasa?
The
the
tennis
tennis-
player?
yeah.
Same deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't, when
And what Kawhi Leonard figured out is he had the confidence to know that I'm a good enough player.
someone will want me.
Someone will pay me.
Yeah. And Biles, the fact that
But that's
you
where
have,
Kaepernick got fucked though.
he did get fucked.
So
But the
gross.
fact that you have people bad mouthing Biles and saying she's not tough.
Right.
I think she went like 8 years without losing an event.
I know.
Like-
Not tough. God,
I mean,
the things that
That's
women's had to put up
that's
with.
pretty good. Now, does it mean that she should have just gutted it out? No. Like she has the right to say I wasn't up to it.
Yeah.
I'm out. And all the comparisons to like if Tom Brady did that. First off, if a guy like Tom Brady did that, we'd be shocked. But would he be criticized? Yeah, but would he still be the best of all time? Yeah,
Right.
probably.
Of course. Yeah.
Like you've earned the right to do it on your own terms.
I'm not a Brady fan.
No, I'm not either,
You
but
can't
like,
argue it.
Although, like I'm
Did you
not
see
a
that-
Brady fan.
Did you see that bullshit video that was going around?
with the football?
The football machine?
Yeah, it's so obviously. And then some people are like, "Is it real?"
No, is it real?
Of course it's not real.
It can't be real.
No, you have wheels spinning the opposite direction. You think he snuck the machine?
Yeah, you jam it and spit it back out.
No, not real. But I just the weird judgmental side people have about professional athletes. If working on behalf of athletes has taught me anything, it's like these guys and gals deal with so much. They're just humans.
Yeah.
And
And you're going
they're-
to side with Jerry Jones for Christ's sake?
Right.
He's not a real good human being.
Are we siding with billionaire owners? Right. Like, yeah, they're right.
Oh God.
So this is why it's ruined my.
Yeah, it's hard to like football right now, especially the whole. It's like the tobacco company saying cigarette smoking is good for you. You know, all the CTE stuff and the protocols, and then they do it, but then it's all half-hearted
and Colin Kaepernick's situation.
He got
killed
fucked.
Me. Like that guy. It's funny, all the stuff that Lamar Jackson is doing now. I mean, Kaepernick did that. I don't pretend to agree with everything these guys say or do.
Right.
And I don't know why we find what they say to be so important. Right. Like
that's a good point.
With the vaccine, right? You're getting a lot of athletes saying
Barkley said something stupid, I think.
Yeah, well, he said anyone who doesn't get a vaccine is stupid, right? But like,
he did?
Yeah,
is that what he said?
Yeah.
Well, he's smart.
He said anyone who doesn't get a vaccine is an ass. Right?
Oh, good for him.
But like at some point
you never know with him what he's going to say.
You're just an athlete. And I love that, respect you, but like why do we as a society place so much importance on what
Well, I'm not going to ask you what you think of Britney Spears then.
Like a 23-year-old guy thinks about a vaccine. It's his choice.
Oh my God, I know. I saw someone.
23.
My wife's fairly politically active, and I sent her this article that said children were protesting mask wearing in whatever, and it was like a New York State or something like that at some hearing protesting. And I'm like, my children protest any meal that's not pure candy. I mean, it's like, who would ask a child whether they should wear a fucking mask or not?
I'm protesting no donuts for or no cookies for breakfast. That's what I'm protesting.
They're going to ask kids if they want to wear a mask or not?
Of course not.
Of course not.
Yeah. It's weird. That's the world we're in, though. It's just kind of nuts.
And then they put them up there, and now they're, and then the people who are on one side of an argument go, look, the kids don't want it. It's like they're kids.
They got promised a Slurpee if they said
I know,
that.
they'll say anything. My kids will say anything for a Slurpee.
Mine too. Slurpee should go.
Under oath, by the way. But they're children.
Right.
Right.
But and that's why it pains me when
that's why children don't testify, right? Their credibilities.
Of course. But that's why, like, when we take the word of athletes to be as like that's the defining opinion on something. And it's like you're making them a role model and you're putting all this weight on them. They're just a guy.
Yeah.
Just a guy.
They're flawed. I mean, humans are flawed, man.
Just a guy.
I raise my hand.
What's satisfying to me as somebody who follows unions, as better than anybody, it's hard to get members on the same page. Right.
Right.
And when you can get members rallying around a common cause, like that's awesome. That's the power of
God, everything gets so easy.
Of an organized labor force, right?
Everything gets so easy.
That's what unionism is all about.
Frito-Lay, right? And recently, did you see that?
No.
So they were working, some ungodly amount of shifts and hours nonstop, and finally, it was so obvious to everybody that this wasn't going to stop. They all just walked out.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah. And no, everything gets so much.
I wish the Amazon employees would do that now.
Right.
I mean, I know.
Everything gets
Doug
so much
Block was
easier.
talking about that this morning. Like, I know how much of an effort is made with Amazon employees, but man, they are shitty to their employees.
Jeff Bezos pays no taxes.
I mean, they are totally. I feel so bad for some of those Amazon employees, and I represent some of them.
Right.
And Amazon is super aggressive with their workers' comp claims.
Of course,
like, guy gets hurt, they literally just start throwing cash at them. Go away. We don't want to treat you. Here's some money. Goodbye. Right.
Cut off the injured finger.
Yeah. Goodbye. And all of them have the same injury. They're just so overworked in those warehouses.
Well, another thing I wanted to talk to you about. We're already at an hour and 43. Oh. Jesus. Another thing I wanted to talk to you about. We're gonna have to do it again because I wanted to get into the whole independent contractor piece. And what do you do if you're an Uber guy that gets hurt?
That's God. I took an Uber once. I may have had too much to drink and had to take an Uber home. And I asked the guy's opinion, and he was like, "Oh well, Uber tells me,
I don't know you.
like Uber says
The app just deleted itself.
that I'm supposed to, and he's like giving me all the lines of why it's better for him to be an independent contractor."
Right.
And I'm like,
all the marketing
you realize
BS.
that like
Yeah.
you can have all that as an employee. They're just lying to you.
Right.
You can have a flexible schedule as an employee. Right?
What if so what happens if I'm an Uber guy and I get hurt?
Nothing. You have no rights. Goodbye.
I just don't eat.
Now, if you get in a
Or I work hurt.
if you get hurt on the job, you have no workers' comp benefits. None. You're on your own.
You got nothing. You're
got
totally on your
So
own.
you can sue the guy who hit you, or God forbid you caused the accident. You can sue the guy,
Good luck with that.
but that's a lawsuit that'll take years. I hope you have medical coverage, because who else is providing you with medical?
Right.
I mean,
Well,
forget the workers' comp angle. Your wife gets pregnant. You don't even have the ability to take leave.
I know.
You don't have any of the rights.
Let's be honest. At the end of the day, when you're the little guy, it's my wife. When you're the little guy, they'll just starve you out. They may owe you so much money, but they're like, you know what? We're just going to withhold money until this guy will sign off for anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why you need help.
Well, that's why I never forget this Uber driver, and I was like, no,
Here, hold on, time out. She wouldn't call unless, well, yes, she would.
I thought it was important.
Hey, sweetheart.
Hi, honey. Are you going to be home for dinner?
Yeah, we're still talking though.
Oh, it comes out in 15 minutes.
Okay, that's probably going to be a no then.
All right, okay.
Love you. Bye.
So, poor Uber driver has no rights.
Nothing.
Nothing. I mean, it's like
Boy, they sure suckered those guys, man.
and it was such an obvious campaign.
Right. Right.
It was so frustrating to see these people have no rights, and they didn't understand. What was so maddening is they had no idea.
Oh, yeah.
All those things that they said were a benefit to them being independent contractors, they could have had those benefits as an employee.
Well, and it was run like a classic anti-union campaign, which was, well, we're just going to close up shop then.
Right. Yeah.
know?
We're out of California.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We're
Right.
Uber. We're not going to do business in California.
And what bothers me, forget the union side of it, the employee side of it. What bothers me about that whole thing is just how anti-competitive it is. Like,
Right.
why don't taxi companies don't get away with that shit? So why do we let Uber get away with that shit?
Oh, don't get me started at the airport.
Now you've got taxi drivers who are basically going out of business because they can't compete.
They can't compete. And the airport charges the taxis for doing business at the airport, whereas the Uber and Lyfts, they get a free ride forever.
It's really
And they still pay pennies on the dollar compared to the taxi company.
It's so frustrating when you're talking to a person and like they don't understand.
And what happens is it comes to bring it all the way back around too, is they end up with social services in the end. So in the
'cause they
end,
need medical treatment.
In the end, you and I pay for what Uber should be paying for.
Right.
Right.
Right. Somehow, some way, that driver who got hurt is going to go to the hospital.
Yeah, they need treatment, and they
get on
should have.
Medi-Cal,
They should have treatment.
get treatment, and Uber didn't have to provide it.
No.
So,
Well, that guy's an entrepreneur.
and that's why, like, those billionaires would never be for all those social services. But the reality is, they rely on them in order to operate a business. 'Cause
Yep.
they need that stuff, and they could easily just provide workers' comp benefits for their people. But no,
Boy, you're preaching to the choir,
it's
man.
cheaper.
We could do this all day. I'm going to cut you off.
We could, but my wife would kill me.
I know. Justin, thanks, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, you up
That
for
was
doing
blessed.
you up for doing it again? or-
Whenever you want.
All right, man.
That was fun.
Justin Litvack, thank
All
you.
right. Thank you.